how Steven Universe explores grief. Steven Universe is a show that tackles many subjects from love to acceptance to coming of age. It's a charming show for children growing up, but it also appeals to the older audiences with its mature themes and presentation. I wish I had a show like this when I was younger, as its messages have truly stuck with me over the years. The way the show handles grief in particular is what intrigues me the most. The way it's presented, and the way each character reacts to loss is both heartbreaking and engaging. The show is about a young boy called Steven, who has magical powers gifted to him by his late mother, Rose. He's raised by his mum's friends alongside his dad, who visits every so often. Although the family loves Steven, it's clear that they're still grieving over the loss of Rose and try their best to hide their feelings from him. What's interesting is how each character reacts to their emotions and how they come to terms with the loss. Steven, having never met his mother, wonders how things were when she was around. Pearl, being Rose's ex-lover, struggles to keep herself together. This loss has left an emotional scar on her soul that ceases to fade. No matter the context, the mere mention of Rose either floods her with happy memories or something snaps, and she bursts into tears. There's no in between. Gauntlet, being the more stoic and aloof member of the group, hides her emotions in an attempt to stay strong. Amethyst is clearly upset by the loss, but distracts herself by eating and playing video games. Steven's dad, Greg, seems to be a very accepting person given the situation. He's managed to move on, and although the grief is still there, he's found inner peace within himself. He embraces the future and his new family. What I like about this portrayal is that it shows there's no right or wrong way to handle such a situation. Just because someone lacks expression doesn't mean they can't feel emotion. Just because someone can break down over a seemingly small thing doesn't make them overly sensitive. You never know what someone else is going through behind the scenes. Grief is a very difficult thing to go through, and it's good that the show doesn't shy away from the heavier side of mourning. Although the subject has been explored in children's shows before, what often isn't explored are the little things. Missing the person through the things they've left behind, forgiving their bad tendencies, the emotional bombshell that hits when you think you're over something, but then a faint memory brings it all flooding back. I feel like I've acted or felt the same way as the show's characters during my stages of grief and can relate to each one. Unlike what some people may think, the feeling never goes away or even gets smaller. You just find different ways of coping or growing around it. Later in the series, we get introduced to more characters who've been affected by Rose's death, and not all of them have positive memories of her. Spinell was abandoned by Rose, and now she's no longer alive, feels the need to take her vengeance out on everybody else. Her actions may not be justified, but we can understand why she'd act the way she does, and Steven sees the humanity in her. He used to believe his mother was this all-perfect being, but he soon begins to realise that despite what his family led him to believe, she had a darker past than he thought. I find this line particularly clever.
There's no such thing as happily ever after. I'll always have more work to do.
Sometimes there'll be a show that comes along and speaks to you on a personal level. For me, Steven Universe was one of those shows, and it likely touched many others who watched it. It helps the viewer understand their feelings rather than avoid them. As well as some films show death, grief and everything that comes along with it isn't often touched upon. What happens to Bambi after his mum was shot? We don't know. It cuts away and is never brought up again. This show takes the time to show its audience just how much of an effect death has on a person. In a strange way, it can shed light on an otherwise dark time in your life. Life doesn't come without its struggles, and it's not always fair, but during those times you may be able to put things into a perspective where change can happen. Negative emotions can often come from a positive source. After all, grief is just love that has nowhere to go.
Sometimes you even sound like her. Do you remember this place? Everything I ever did, I did for her. Now she's gone. But I'm still here. Sometimes, I wonder if she can see me through your eyes. What would she think of me now?
Well, I think you're pretty great.